What's going on, guys? Welcome to this Waiver Wire edition of the Fair Shake Football podcast. We're going to talk about some guys that either we like on waivers a lot or some other guys that maybe we like, but, just because we like them because you can get them for free in an attempt to do what I always say and be a week early. I'd rather not compete at top dollar for the waiver guys. I'd rather be a week early and get some guys that, eventually, like, for example, so far this year, I've done this with Dalton Schultz. I was a week early on him. Then after I already had him on my roster, on my bench, then he goes off again. And then he was, of course, one of the big names on waivers. Well, if you're a week early, I mean, it's good for many reasons. So there's going to be some of those types of guys, some of the guys that you should either spend your fob on or a decent waiver position. And, so we're going to get into it. Who do you like to say? Do you know who your favorite guy is?
Well, I'm a week early on him. I got him last week, but if he's still out there, Rashad Bateman.
Rashad Bateman, yeah. Yes. I mean, what was he, six targets, 4 catches? It wasn't like he crazy production, but it was his first NFL game, and he was targeted 6 times.
He had 4 for 29.
But with targets.
Oh, yeah.
6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's on Lamar's, 20-something pass attempts. So, if he's already immediately seeing that type of volume in terms of target percentage, I think that's definitely encouraging. He's certainly on my waiver list as well.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get more opportunities as the season goes on. Obviously, he's a great talent. So look for him to build trust with Lamar Jackson. I think that'll also play a huge part into it. And, I mean, Bateman also tied Mark Andrews for team lead in looks this weekend. So he's a great pickup. He's only owned in 28% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. Obviously, if you're a week early like I was, you already have him. But he's definitely an intriguing waiver pickup for sure.
Yeah, I think that it's always a very good sign when a rookie in their first game is being utilized and it shows that word that I always look for, intent. Like, what's their intent? Well, it's obviously to get him the football. If you target him 6 times in his rookie debut, I think it's a reasonable assumption to think that that'll be at least his role. Not to say he'll get 6 targets every single week, but that'll be roughly at least his role moving forward. And I think that it's also, if you're talking about what's the upside of him, I think he could be their bona fide wide receiver 2, not a wide receiver 2 necessarily, but he could be their number 2 to Hollywood, and they're probably number 3 overall after Mark Andrews, which, who knows? The Ravens have shown that they are much more willing to pass the football in volume if they need to, if they feel like they need to in games this year. So, I like Bateman. I wouldn't spend anything crazy on him because I think his upside is capped. Like some of these guys, if they have league-winning upside, then I would say, most certainly spend your whole kabang on him or whatever you feel necessary, whatever you feel like you have to spend to get him if it's a fob league. But, like, for example, me, I'm not going to use my number 1 waiver on Rashad Bateman. I'm just not going to do that, I think that I could see a world where in 5 or 6, 7 weeks from now where we're saying, wow, Hollywood did this and he was like the guy, and then all of a sudden now it's Bateman. I could see that happening. But I think that the much more likely course of action is going to be for him to be kind of a flex play, Yeah. So, plan on him being a flex play and spend accordingly.
You're basically banking on his potential at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, obviously on a great team.
And the fact that he was targeted 6 times in his debut, that definitely, to me, is important. So
yes.
Who's the next guy on your list? Let me see if I have him on mine as well.
Well, with Chubb already out and Kareem Hunt going down, obviously you almost have to target either Demetric Felton or Dearness Johnson.
That's exactly what I have here in the same exact spot, number 2. Which one do you like more, Felton or Johnson?
Well, it's funny. I had to start Demetric Felton in one league this week because I was so thin.
Yeah,
at running back.
I didn't think he was a bad start.
But I think he's more of the receiving back. He didn't get 1 carry on the ground, so I think I want to say Felton, but I think you have to go with Dearness Johnson. obviously he's going to get more of the carries. So
Right.
I think I like him better.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, he is built a bit differently than Felton in terms of he's 5'10", 208, so he's kind of rocked up little dude.
Yeah, Felton went 2 for 14. I mean, dismal, but
we also saw, and I think it's important to note this, last year, right, week 4, there was an injury to someone. Maybe it was Hunt or maybe it was Chubb and Hunt. I don't know. I think it was just Chubb actually. Where anyways. This kid, Dearness Johnson, came in against the Cowboys and carried the ball 13 times for 95 yards, over 7.3 yards per attempt. The following week against the Colts, he carried it 8 times for 32 yards. So, after that, he didn't do much up until week 15 against the Giants, where he carried it 4 for 24. And then in terms of what did he do as a pass catcher in that time, he had 3 catches on the season for 14 yards. So I think that it's possible, right, that we could be looking at a poor man's version of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, meaning this guy is Chubb, and he'll carry it. He's not going to get 20 carries a game, but he'll be the majority of the carries, and
he'll
then
be 1A and Felton be 1B,
and you'll have Felton be the pass catching guy, and probably get a few carries as well. So if, and this is kind of what it looks like right now, if Chubb and Hunt miss, at least 1 week, but multiple weeks, like Hunt is scheduled to miss, I think these guys could both be. I think it's very likely that they're both fantasy relevant. But again, not quite sure of the ceiling of these guys. Therefore, I wouldn't spend anything like a number 1 waiver on anybody like that. I wouldn't spend a ton of fab. I'd spend, if I was 9th in my waiver order or something like that, I would probably spend it on whichever guy you feel has more upside, something like that.
Yeah.
I think is a reasonable thing to do. I think that if you wait and see if you can get them for free after waivers, I don't think these guys will be there. Maybe one of them will be in your league, and so maybe that's Demetric Felton, and that might be a good value as well. So, but I do like them, and I think that I guess Dearness Johnson has more upside considering he's going to touch the ball more.
Yeah.
But I think that Felton could be a solid, slow-end flex option for you as well. All right, moving on. Let's talk about so you don't like this guy very much, but I do. Rashad Penny. And it's not that I like him. He's a guy that's going to be free, in my opinion. It's very likely that he is not going to be a guy you have to spend much on.
Yeah.
And the only world in which you would take Rashad, that you would even, add Rashad Penny to your roster and really, I guess, drop someone else for Rashad Penny is if, number 1, he's activated and able to play. And then also, number 2, if Alex Collins and Chris Carson miss this week, Rashad Penny's a guy that, who knows, right? He could come in there. It's Pete Carroll. You never know. He could come in there and see 25 touches or something crazy. It's possible. He thinks it's going to be much more of a committee in Seattle, and I tend to agree with that as well. But I think that there's a chance you could have, Rashad Penny.
Well, it says here Alex Collins has a chance to play Week 7 versus Saints. So,
yeah. That's definitely possible, right? And again, that's why the good thing here is that you're not going to have to spend anything on Rashad Penny.
Right.
So in the event that he doesn't, if you can drop your kicker, pick him up, hold him until you know what's going on there with Collins this week or whatever, and then if Collins is playing, then maybe just drop him and pick up your new kicker, right? Just something like that, or hold him until the game's over, and then God forbid, should Alex Collins suffer another injury or something like that, that's more serious, miss time, yada yada, you've got Rashad Penny waiting in the wings, and you paid $0.00 for him. So I think that's something to just to keep an eye on, especially if you're. I know there's a lot of running back injuries out there. You might be desperate. Well, this is what we're doing here. We're playing ahead of the stick. We're trying to keep it ahead of the sticks by being a week early and getting these guys cheap. So. I also like Romandre Stevenson. I know you like Romandre as well.
I love Romandre Stevenson. I don't love that he's a Sooner, but I drafted him in a lot of leagues. He was my sleeper coming in to this season. So he could start seeing more opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's possible that he has standalone value. Even with Damian Harris fully healthy, I think that's a possibility. We saw a glimpse of that this year, and it makes a ton of sense for me for a rookie to come in what was it, week 6, and start to get more involved in the offense. You know,
Right.
that's what we saw. And granted, there's been injuries there that have contributed to that, but I think in any which way, this kid would have found his way onto the field. So,
I mean, he was inactive week 1, so he's obviously come a long way. Yeah, and definitely could start getting more opportunity. The talent's there, I think, with Rashad Stevenson or Romandre Stevenson. Yeah. So I don't know. I like the kid a lot.
I mean, he also had 11 carries against the Texans the week before.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So that's obviously, I think that was the game that Damian Harris went out with injury, but he's played 34% and 33% of the snaps in back-to-back weeks. You know, and I think the most encouraging thing I saw was that I think all of us saw was that semi-long catch that he came and caught there. That was something that, you know, you don't really think of a guy that's basically 230, 240 pounds as someone that can, you know, has that in his repertoire. I can tell you this, they would never call that play if Damian Harris was playing running back there. So that tells you maybe they see something in Romandre that Damian doesn't have, and maybe that's a 1-2 tandem. There's a chance that this is a 1-2. This is a 60-40 committee in 1 month's time.
Stevenson could be putting up RB2 numbers.
Yeah, if you get Stevenson, right, if you get him on your team, however you do it, I think that the key here is to hold him. Hold him for at least 2 or 3 weeks. Monitor the snap usage, as I always say. Monitor the touches, watch the games, because you need to see, like, that play that he made in this one really caught my eye in terms of that intermediate area catch. I think that kind of stuff is important, and I think that if we start seeing a couple more of those, we could really, you know, see the uptick. And it's about, again, being able to get this guy before you pay face value of what he is after he reveals himself to be whatever he might be.
Yep.
So, anyways, here, let's move right along. 2 guys that I like, and they play for the same team. I don't know if you like these guys. Le'Veon Bell.
Mm-hmm.
And
Latavius Murray.
Nope. Devonta Freeman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Le'Veon Bell, Devonta Freeman. So the reason I like them is because I heard Latavius Murray was a little banged up. Okay, if Latavius Murray's banged up, these guys both scored a touchdown in this week's game. You know, Devonta Freeman, he ran very effectively from a yards per carry standpoint.
He kind of looked like vintage Devonta there for a little bit.
Dude, he's 29 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not, and maybe this is just the perfect fit for him, but he had 9 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown, was targeted twice in the passing game. Remember, Lamar didn't throw the ball even 30 times. So for him to get 2 of those targets is, you know, I think somewhat impressive. Le'Veon Bell, I think that this is really contingent upon, you know, Latavius Murray missing time. But if Le'Veon Bell is, I just feel like he's a perfect back for this offense in Baltimore, like even much more so than Devonta Freeman. I think Le'Veon Bell could be a bell cow back and an effective one in Baltimore with everything they've got going on. And again, he's only 29 years old. Just, 2 years ago, Le'Veon Bell signed the richest contract, I believe, or one of the richest contracts by any running back in NFL history. You know, so take that for what you will. And at that time, the Ravens were also interested in Bell. So I think that, you know, and granted, Bell was 8 carries, 18 yards, but he did get in the end zone, didn't see any targets, which I think is, you know, whatever. I mean, they had other guys, so again, there weren't many targets to go around. But I just think that Le'Veon Bell could be a guy that in 4 or 5 weeks now could be the bona fide lead fantasy back in Baltimore. And I think that getting him on your roster now, holding on to him and monitoring him if you can for a couple weeks is I wouldn't pick him up and start him this week.
Right. I think he's going to develop first into a flex value. I mean, he's 7% rostered in all Yahoo fantasy leagues. So he's out there. Is it worth taking a flyer on him?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Just if he's out there and you can get him for probably $0 or maybe $1 on your fab, I would just pick him up and roster him and see what happens.
Yeah. You know, this guy wasn't even on my list, but I want to touch on him real quick. His name is Christian Kirk. I think you guys have heard of him. Obviously, he had 5 for 75 and a touchdown this past week. But the most encouraging part about that to me is his 8 targets, or this tied for his most this season. He's only owned in 53% of sleeper leagues. Okay, so he's not being, he's not always owned. There's no guarantee. But the most encouraging part, in my opinion, was the fact that he also played 85% of the snaps. Right, that was his season high by a good margin. His previous high was 72% back in week 4. So if he's going to start inching up to be a guy playing 80, 90% of the snaps, he could, in my opinion, be their number 2 receiver. I think their number 2 pass catcher, however you want to put it. What I mean is not limited to the wide receiver position as it pertains to the Cardinals. I think he could be that guy for them. I think in 5, 6, 7 weeks' time, again, right in time for the stretch run, we could be looking at a legit, reliable, boom flex option in Christian Kirk. I think that's just something I want to touch on real quick. And, again, I think it's important because you could probably get him for not all that much right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Who else do I have here?
T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
Talk about him.
T.Y. So he had 4 for 80. That was obviously very encouraging, his first game of the season. T.Y. to me, I know there's another injury. You just told me.
Yeah, quad injury.
Quad. Okay, checks out well Monday. That's what it says here on Sleepers Update. So if the quad checks out well and he's considered, I think, day-to-day is what I'm reading right now, then you definitely want him on your roster.
Yes, for sure.
He played 50% of the snaps in that game, but he still caught all 4 of his targets for 80 yards.
Yeah, he's definitely worth adding. Obviously, I wouldn't spend a ton on him, maybe 8% of your budget.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think throw 3, 4.
Yeah, in between 5 and 10.
Yeah.
Depending on
Not
your
10.
needs.
To me, maybe. I mean, I get what you're saying, but if you need, and he's a guy that I've actually liked all the way through even the pre-draft process. Before I knew he was hurt, I was really thinking about him as a guy that could potentially really add value. But yeah, I think T.Y. Definitely needs to be owned, because if he's healthy and playing, and it appears as though that's what we'll be seeing moving forward, I think that he's a guy that could really become a solid flex option for you. Like he could be. It would not surprise anyone, including myself, if he was the number 1 receiver in Indy by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So. And
he's 39% rostered in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. So
okay,
go get your boy.
I got one I'm really excited about. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I don't know where the consensus is on him. Like, let me see. What's his ownership percentage? Okay, so he's only rostered right now in 7% of sleeper leagues. So that's good news. And the reason I like Donovan Peoples-Jones, okay, it's not just because he caught the Hail Mary, because I really, that was nice and all, and it was a nice catch. But it was because he just played his second highest snap total, and that was with Odell Beckham in the lineup. And Odell isn't he banged up? And we don't even know what's the status.
He came back
into
the game, but yeah, he's aching.
We right now we have to treat Odell a little bit like how we're treating Julio, in the sense that maybe he's trying to tell us that he's injury prone now, and maybe we need to just look at Donovan Peoples-Jones way, because Peoples-Jones last 2 weeks now, 11 targets, caught 9 of those 11 for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay, so he's been an effective player. The thing with him when I remember from his tape, he was a explosive, athletic kid with very good size. Okay, he is now becoming productive when called upon. Now that we're starting to see, remember, Jarvis Landry's still not back. He should be soon, but he's still not back. We're looking at Odell, who we're kind of not really becoming more and more optimistic about, even though Odell had a pretty good game statistically speaking. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones could surprise and be that he could be, who knows, they're 1 or 2 by season's end. We never know what kind of health Landry's going to come back in.
He may return to action on Thursday.
Oh, Landry?
Yeah.
So. Even if he does, I think that DPJ is still someone that you want to get on your team and hold him for 2 or 3 weeks and see how this all plays out, especially if Landry plays. If Landry, for example, if Landry comes back, plays, right, and DPJ's snap count drops from 78% or 80%, whatever it was, down to, 16%, then he's droppable again.
Right.
No doubt. But if it's if especially if Odell and Landry play, and if it's still 70% or 60, even 60%, 55%, because they don't do a lot of 3 wides, if it's like somewhere in that range, anything above 55%, I would keep him another week and just kind of play it by ear like that. See what happens from there. But I do like him a lot, and I think that you could get him for basically nothing right now. So, who else, Lay?
Ricky Seals-Jones, I think, is a viable waiver pickup this week.
Ricky. This dude, over the last 3 weeks, check this out. 93% of the snaps in week 4. 99% of the snaps in week 5. 100% of the snaps this past week against Kansas City. Last 2 weeks, 15 targets, 9 catches, 99 yards. So he's been, and a touchdown. And, of course, he had the long touchdown catch in this one. So, to me, with Logan Thomas out, if you need a guy that can come in and be a potentially top 7 to 10 tight end for you every week.
Yeah, he's definitely their starting tight end until Logan Thomas is back. And it looks like this is a long-term injury, so who knows when Logan Thomas is back.
Right. So I think Seals-Jones is certainly a must-add, and he's a guy that if I were following my own rule book and if I would have been paying closer attention, which I try my best to, he was a guy that I should have been a week early on.
Yeah.
He really was. And for whatever reason, I wasn't.
Yeah, if you're in desperate need of a tight end, I think he's worth it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like you said, he's an every down player. He's locked in as their tight end 1.
Yeah, I mean, literally played 100% of the snaps last week, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm spending probably around 10%, maybe a little more of my fab budget for him.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that.
So, if, like I said, need tight end, go get RSJ.
Yeah. Chris Evans, you want to talk about him a little bit?
Yeah.
So, obviously, he had the touchdown catch.
Was that the opening drive?
It was, I believe. Or if it wasn't the opening drive, it was the second drive. One or the other. So, he had the nice touchdown catch. He caught 3 for 49 and a touchdown altogether. And he ran the ball also 4 times for 18 yards, right? So, the week before this, we saw Samaje Perine. Wasn't he the guy that got the carries?
Yeah, he was out on COVID, so that's why Chris Evans got more of a chance this week. So obviously, Perine will most definitely be back next week. But like you said, he was very effective in this game. He had almost 16 fantasy points. He's rostered in 4% of the leagues. I actually had him in my starting lineup in one of my leagues because I was so thin. I was starting him and Felton.
You just binked it?
No, I dropped him.
Oh.
Yeah. Picked up DJ Dallas, who got me 10. So, I mean, I lost out on like 5 or 6 points.
Yeah.
But
that's not bad.
I think he's an interesting stash.
Oh, absolutely.
In deeper leagues, obviously.
And so. I think he could be even more than a stash considering oh, man, I just accidentally clicked on the Michael Perine, and there were guys that told me that he was going to out-snap and out-produce Michael Carter. Yeah, he's played 0 snaps all year.
Yeah.
Anyways, Evans, I think, is absolutely a must-grab because here's the thing. Let me just say, a little scenario here for you, and you tell me if you think it's crazy. Would you think it's possible the Bengals go out there and play whoever they're playing in Week 7?
They have a tough matchup.
Doesn't matter, right? But the point I'm making is Joe Mixon goes out there, he gets banged up, he limps off the field, and then Evans comes in. Evan goes 13 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown and catches 4 passes for 37 yards, whatever, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Perine is in the short yardage back. I'm assuming he's back and healthy, he's in the short yardage situations. He plays 30% of the snap. That's a situation where now, all of a sudden, with Joe Mixon's status up in the air, potentially, God forbid, but, these things happen. I think that's where Chris Evans would be jumped up to the top waiver ad of that particular week. So I think that if we can be a week early again, not to be too repetitive, but it's important, right? Get this guy on your roster and just have him there in case, God forbid, something happens to Joe Mixon or whatever. Mm-hmm. He misses a couple games with pinky toe injury or something like that, whatever it is, have him on your roster. So I think that getting him, especially because the presence of Perine last week playing all those snaps, and he played 60%, if I remember correctly, and he carried the ball a ton, for a backup running back. That right there, the fact that Perine was then on the COVID list this week will and should keep Evans' price down. You know what I mean? So whereas if Perine was just a healthy scratch, well then that would be different. We might be looking at looking at him a whole lot more expensively right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's important to definitely get him on your roster because I think you can be a week, maybe 2 weeks early on this kid, but it might work out really well for you in a league-winning type of way.
All right, last person on the list.
On your list, but go ahead.
Jarrod Patterson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so he's just a must-add. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a viable option, obviously, if you are in desperate need.
Well, because Antonio Gibson, let's just be real, he might miss a game or two or three, So in the event that happens, Jarrod Patterson, because you can't just rely on J.D. McKissic to carry the entire load. That'd be crazy. He's smaller than me. But Patterson is a rocked up, chiseled dude. I didn't watch his college tape, just to be honest, but I've seen a few plays of his NFL game, and he does look to be, he looks kind of the part. He looks a little bit, like he's got some burst and some explosion or whatever. So I think that basically as a pure handcuff and as a guy that's not going to be a super high ceiling guy, like Chris Evans, if the world, comes around in the right exact way for him, I think it could be huge in terms of what he would mean for your fantasy team. Whereas Patterson, I think, would be a guy that would be a flex option. That's about it. But still probably someone that you want to go ahead and get on your roster, depending on what's the health status of Antonio Gibson is.
Yes.
But real quick, I'm going to run through a couple other guys because I think they're important as well. And in no particular order, I'm not really interested in ranking these guys, just kind of tell you what I think about them. Diamy Brown, I think, is someone that needs to be owned. He played 80% of the snaps last week. We've seen Curtis Samuel has shown us that he can be injury prone, at least a little bit at times. And I think that Diamy Brown was even playing up in the 90% of the snaps range earlier this year. So I think that he's someone that, again, for free, after waivers, go ahead and grab him on your roster. If you need help at receiver, you might even be able to start him next week because depending on, what your receiver situation is looking like. But let me just look real quick. Diamy Brown last week he was targeted 6 times. So he played 80% of the snaps, was targeted 6 times, caught 3 for 30. I think that's, just something to keep an eye on, especially because you can get him for free and he might be a legit flex option or more. Who else do I got here? Jamal Agnew, 5 for 85 it was? Excuse me. 5 for 85, I believe. And if you told me, and I think I mentioned this in the previous pod, but if you told me that Jamal Agnew was their number 2 receiver from now for the rest of the season, fantasy-wise, I would believe that, right? His snap percentage in weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 was 14, 7, 9, 14, right? Not very exciting. However, in week 5, it was 63%. What did he do for you? He was targeted 7 times, caught 6 for 41. In week 6, he was playing 59% of the snaps. What did he do? 6 targets, caught 5 for 78. And he's also a guy that can run the ball in those types of situations. He's a dynamic guy with the ball in his hands type of dude anyway. So he is, another reason I like him is because he's only 26 years old as a converted cornerback, right? So he's someone that is only going to get better with time. If they're starting to feel comfortable enough to play him in live game action and target him 6 times, 7 times, give him 60% of the snaps, I think he could be a guy that's really, who knows? Maybe, that might be it wouldn't shock me if he's the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville by the end of the season.
And it seems pretty clear that he's carved out a role in that offense.
Yep, as evidenced by 2 weeks in a row now. And you still may be able to get him cheap because Laviska Shenault had a good week, and I think people just love Laviska, so they're kind of more featured. They're more thinking about him, and the presence of Laviska and what he was able to do last week kind of keeps Agnew a little bit more under the radar than he probably should. A.J. Green has been balling, so, whatever. Yeah, he's owning 56% of Sleeper League, so I think that it's just worth, if he's there for you, get him on your roster. Trevor Lawrence is somebody that maybe you should pick up now because maybe he's going to be really good the rest of the way, or he's at least going to be, a solid starting quarterback option for you streaming wise if you need a guy next week. I also like Nico Collins. So Nico played, he's a rookie, remember that. He played 57% of the snaps last week. He was targeted 6 times. I think Nico is a guy he's a big traits guy for me. So, he's a guy, where's he at here? Make sure 6'4", 215. He's a big body, right? And I don't know what happened in weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5, but in week 1 he played 55% of the snaps, was targeted 3 times, just caught 1 for 7, and then it was basically a whole lot of nothing. And then this past week he played 57% of the snaps, targeted 6 times, caught 4 for 44 yards. So again, if we're talking about a guy that we're going to be a week early on, this is another candidate. I think that maybe, just get him on your roster, see what happens, do it for free, completely free, and see what happens there. And then the last guy I want to touch on is Cole Comet, man. I think that Cole Comet is someone that maybe I have a really strong feeling that Cole Comet is about to turn the corner in the sense that he's going to be a guy that gets a much more profound role down the stretch of this season, and that could start as early as next week, right?
Yeah. But that also relies on the success of Justin Fields and what he does.
He's got to get better, don't you think?
He's definitely got the talent to get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
By the way, Cole Comet was targeted. He basically plays 79 or more % of the snaps in every game.
Right.
He was targeted 5 times last week, caught 4 for 49. So a lot of times we look back at this 2 or 3 weeks from now when Cole Komet's the top guy in the waiver ad, and we're like, man, I just said this about Ricky Seals-Jones. Like, damn, I should have been a week early on Cole Comet. Those types of guys, it doesn't hurt to drop your kicker, pick this guy up for literal free, and hold on to him for a week, maybe 2, depending on what you see from him next week. So I think that is kind of my take on what I would do with Cole Comet and a lot of these guys, right? That extra roster space for your kicker, you can always pick up a kicker that might be very serviceable and likely could be very serviceable for that particular week. So, I think that having that extra roster space used on someone like a Cole Komet, someone like a Ricky Seals-Jones 2 weeks ago, someone like that, some Nico Collins, et cetera, I think that would be value. That would be of value to you and anybody, because at this point we've all been hit by injuries. We all know what we've all had a guy or two disappoint. It's inevitable. It's fantasy football.
Yep.
But that's all we got, right?
Yeah, that's it. So be sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, comment who your top waiver is this week. Who's your top waiver?
My top waiver this week.
If you had to put one on,
I guess it would be Bateman.
Yeah.
But I'm not super excited about it. See, here's the thing about me. I think maybe it's my screwed up way of looking at it, but I get more excited about someone like Agnew, who I think could be, who could be, or Chris Evans, who could be huge for you, and it's someone you can acquire for nothing. I get more excited about the value based on acquisition cost and what they might be for you moving forward. If a guy has a limited upside, which I view Bateman to have, maybe at absolute best, Bateman's a low end wide receiver 2. If that happens and I paid a hefty price for him, that's okay value. But I'd much rather be on the train of like getting these guys for dirt cheap or free, and then seeing what happens if they pop off.
But if you're desperate, obviously, I think Bateman or Romandre Stevenson are probably my top waiver ads of this week.
And also Dearness Johnson. I mean, he had that game last year where he went 93 yards or whatever it was. So I think that's, he's a guy that could be in for the lion's share of the carries in an offense that runs the ball the second most of anybody in the NFL. So yeah. But anyways, as you said, I think that's it, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions for waivers, leave it in the comments there, and I will answer them. I'll do the very best I can to be paying attention and answer them ASAP. So.
Yeah, be sure to hit up the DMs as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, Instagram and Twitter. And we'll wrap it up here, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.